Okay, here we go. Stand by. 3, 2, 1, action.
Assume nothing.
Brash, bald-faced blasphemy.
Question everything.
I find it extremely hard to imagine.
Open your eyes.
It is quite all right to be an atheist.
The fastest growing group of people in the country has been measured as being those who have no belief or who are atheists.
You don't have to be apologetic or quiet about it.
Challenge the opposition.
You see religion on 100 fronts losing the argument.
And start thinking. This is the Thinking Atheist worldwide.
Have you ever had a moment, an encounter, something happened in your life, you were talking to somebody about God or spirituality or religion or a related topic, and they said something or did something that literally made you facepalm? You know what I'm saying? You just stop and go, oh, should I bother? I want to hear your story, and I want to hear it now. The guest call-in number at the top of the screen. And I don't have Chaotic Shelley screening our calls, not because she's not up at 4 o'clock Israel time, which it is at this very moment. That's a.m., as in middle of the freaking night. But unfortunately, she's having some audio problems, and she's unable to Skype in and handle a switchboard. So unfortunately, you're stuck with me. And that means I'm going to need to introduce the calls by area code rather than name. So be listening for your area code, and we'll move into the switchboard. And I'd love to hear your facepalm moment. Keep them tight, keep them on topic, and I'd love to hear from you. Again, the guest number at the top of the screen. The reason that this topic came to my mind, it just flew into my psyche last week. I'm on a business trip. I'm on the road. And I'm doing the schmooze thing, you know, and shaking hands, and I'm representing the company, and we're down in Atlanta having a good time, blah, blah, blah. At the end of a long day, go back to the hotel, kick my feet up to kind of reboot, you know. And I'm flipping channels right there in the hotel, got my feet kicked up, you know, and it just feels so good. And lo and behold, on Channel 3, it's none other than evangelist Richard Roberts. And I had a facepalm moment. Now, I realize we have listeners and callers from all around the world, and even many in the United States of America may not be that familiar with who Richard Roberts is. So, allow me to take you back in time. Allow me to give you some backstory, and you're going to love it, okay? Oral Roberts, that's O-R-A-L, Oral Roberts was Richard Roberts' father. Oral passed away a couple of years ago. A preacher's kid. Oral Roberts became a traveling faith healer. He did tent revivals all around the world. And then what he would do is he would go from city to city with this great big portable tent. And they would erect the tents and bring out like 3,000 metal folding chairs, and people would stand in long lines. And they did meetings and conventions and television appearances all around the world. People would wait in line for his healing crusades. Okay, so he could pray for them and they could be healed by the blood of Jesus. And that's exactly how he sounded, by the way. He started a radio broadcast in the late 40s. He did TV revivals in the 50s. And according to some, was like number 2 to Billy Graham as the most influential and popular evangelist in the United States, Oral Roberts. Back in 1963, he founded Oral Roberts University. He said God commanded him to build a college. Now, at the time, the architecture at ORU was supposed to look really cutting edge, you know, and futuristic. If you will Google images of the campus, you're going to ask yourself why the art director for the Jetsons cartoons decided to design a university, because the whole campus was supposed to be space age and cutting edge. And if you look at it, it's like gold mirrors, and they've got a prayer tower that looks like a big top you could spin, or a spaceship. They got a whole one building that's nothing but just gold mirrors all over the side. There's another, I want to say it's the library on the campus. It either looks like a spaceship or the largest speed bump in the world. And so they built this university, and people came from all over the world to attend. Okay? Oral Roberts was a controversial guy, never more controversial than he was in 1977. He claimed to have had a vision. I had a vision that I saw a 900-foot-tall Jesus. and it commanded me to build a hospital, and it will be called the City of Faith Medical and Research Center, one of the largest healthcare facilities in the world. Now, apparently nobody at the time decided to stop and ask this basic question. Why does a faith healer need to build a hospital? If all it takes is the laying on of hands, why do you have to build a facility and hire the doctors and nurses? I guess nobody stopped to think about that. Oral Roberts himself said that Jesus told him that he was to find a cure for cancer. I am not making this up, okay? And if he didn't raise $8 million for research by March of 1987, this was in January of that year, he said God would take his physical life. Yeah, God would kill him in the body because he would no longer be of any earthly value on this earth. Now, a last-minute millionaire hero shows up, right, donates the final amount needed, and the confetti flies, and everybody sings songs of praises to Jesus, and thank God Oral Roberts' life was saved. Now, the City of Faith, this divinely inspired hospital that God had ordered, was built, and it closed in 1989 after only 8 years because the thing lost incredible amounts of money. Right? It was bankrupt pretty much. So they leased out the buildings of the City of Faith Hospital as office space. They had attorneys in there. They had like a debt consolidation company. They had media companies, book publishers. I mean, lots of people who had nothing to do with healing the sick, let alone finding a cure for cancer. Oral Roberts was so broke, the poor fella had to sell his house in Palm Springs and Beverly Hills. Breaks your little heart. Now, in the mid-1980s, Oral Roberts' son, Richard Roberts, who started this story, he grew into his own as an evangelist, right? He had his own TV show, The Place for Miracles, and Make Your Day Count. The guy was an inspiration. He preached, he sang, he ministered. He eventually became president of the freaking university. Now, he and his wife, Lindsay Roberts, were part of a big lawsuit that happened 3 years ago, alleging that he used university assets for his own gain and illegally ordered the university to promote a political candidate he liked, which is illegal and unethical. There were tons of allegations. They said he used university funds to send his own daughter on a Bahamas trip using a college jet. $123,000 in university money alleged used to remodel his personal house, using ministry donors to purchase big red Mercedes convertible and a white Lexus SUV, among others. There was a former housekeeper, did a radio interview. I heard this interview. Was talking about caring for the Roberts home. Actually stopped. The closet in the house was so big, she stopped to count the neckties and pairs of shoes because there were so many. She thought, this is a story nobody will believe. She said their closet was large enough to have over 250 neckties for Richard, and Lindsay had over 400 pair of shoes. God's great work indeed. October 2007, Richard Roberts asked for an indefinite leave of absence from the ministry. Now, to their credit, the college actually did the right thing. The tenured facility, they'd had enough of this business finally, and they actually signed a vote of no confidence in Richard Roberts in November of 2007. He resigned from the Board of Regents. He was out. All the lawsuits were settled shortly after that. So he's voted out by his own staff. He leaves the university tainted in controversy, and he leaves the state in disgrace. Now, last week, while I'm in the hotel with my feet kicked up after a long day flipping the channels, guess who I see? Evangelist Richard Roberts. And yes, he was asking for money. There's a gift of $500. Yes, I received that seed into the work of Jesus. Thank you so much. And he would hold his hand toward the television camera, a grotesque display. And he would say, I'm sending a word of healing your way. We just got word in that Donor so-and-so, a partner with us, has given $100,000. Thank you so much, Jesus. I'm sending a blessing your way. And the guy just looks awful, and his wife looks even worse. And I'm screaming at the television set, how in the hell is this man still on television and possibly making millions of dollars? I mean, think about this ilk of people. Like evangelist Jimmy Swaggart, right? He was caught soliciting sex from a hooker in '88. And he went back on TV and he was crying. They call it the I have sinned speech. Google it. You'll see it on YouTube. In '91, just a few years later, he was found again in the company of a hooker. And he temporarily stepped down for a time of healing and counseling in his life. 20 years later, guess who is still on frickin' television, preaching the Word of God and taking our financial gifts? One more real fast, and we'll go to your phones. Anybody hear of Peter Popoff? He was kind of a low-rent evangelist in the 80s. He made a big splash. Even most people in the Christian community even thought this guy was a joke. Peter Popoff is his name. Peter Popoff, a prophet and faith healer. He was exposed by none other than one of my heroes, the magician and skeptic James Randi. He was using a hidden earpiece. He stuck this earpiece in his ear, and his wife was behind the curtain backstage. And they'd have people who came in with infirmants, with sicknesses, and they would have him fill out a prayer card. James has back pain. Susan has arthritis. So-and-so has cancer. So-and-so can't walk. And they'd fill out a prayer card. So then she would sit behind the curtain, and what she would do is she would read this through an electronic earpiece. She would read into the mic, and he would just pick it up in his ear. But he played it off like he was hearing the voice of God. He didn't say anything about any prayer cards being read into his ear or his wife backstage. No, he passed it off as the voice of Jesus. So he's on stage, and he's playing it up big time. And he stops, and he says, I have a word. There's somebody out here in this audience right now named Bob. Bob has, yes, Lord, arthritis. Bob, would you stand up for me? And Bob stands up, and the tears flow, and the organ plays, and everybody's wailing and can't believe the miracle of it all. And he comes forward, and he lays the healing hand of Jesus on him. And it's grotesque to watch. James Randi exposed this guy as a fraud over 20 years ago. Guess who's still on the air? Preaching and receiving financial gifts. How long does the list have to go on before we start losing credibility? Hello, Robert Tilton, Ted Haggard, Robert Schuller. Geez, that was just recent. You know who Robert Schuller is? The Hour of Power. They built a huge, beautiful crystal cathedral in California decades ago. Well, a few years back, he fired his own son from the ministry. His son was like a pulpit preacher in the church. He was supposed to take over the mantle because he's getting up there in years, you know. Robert Schuller is really pretty old, and I think he was thinking about his legacy. So his son was going to take over. He fired his son, and they just, I think last month, filed for bankruptcy. So as they're on TV talking about the power of positive thinking, which is one of their codas, the economy sucks, books are in the tank, and they have to file for Chapter 11. Now, why doesn't everybody with eyes to see and ears to hear realize and know that this is a total circus? Because every time I see one of these charlatans on TV or hear them on the radio or doing whatever it is they do, I have a personal facepalm moment. That's mine. What's yours? Let's go to the switchboard. Again, I don't have Chaotic Shelley on the phones because, number one, it's 4 o'clock in the morning in her neck of the woods, and two, she's having an audio glitch that doesn't allow her to speak to our callers. So I'm going to try to man the phones alone and do it by area code. Let's go to 860. You're on the Thinking Atheist. Hi, who's this?
Hey, this is John.
John. Now, is this the John who had emailed me earlier in the week?
Yeah, about the religion speech.
John, I want you to set this up for everybody. I asked John to be one of my first callers for a reason. He sent me an email early in the week about his personal facepalm experience. And so in a nutshell, can you kind of set it up? I mean, what it is that you did and kind of the repercussions of it real fast?
I was a confirmed Catholic for a while, and I felt that I wanted to give this persuasive speech about why being an atheist is a good thing, and pretty much why religion is not really the best choice. So I gave my speech and everything, and after, everyone has to accept questions. So as soon as I said the word atheist, the whole room grew quiet.
Now, is this college or is this high school or what is it? Now,
I'm a freshman in college, so it's
okay.
a freshman college class.
All right. So you gave a speech. What is it? Was it saying that there is no God? Is that what was the title of the speech?
Why being religious isn't smart.
And the entire room goes, okay. All right. So you gave the speech and they opened it up for Q&A. Then what happened?
Well, I answered a few questions, why are you an atheist, blah, 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 stuff like that. How does your mom feel about this? And this one girl asked me, do you believe in miracles? And I say, no, I don't believe in miracles. And it's like she blows up, what do you believe in? And everyone's like, yeah, what do you believe in?
Were they just being passionate about their belief? Were they angry? Was it like a hostile crowd?
It wasn't like a hostile crowd, but it was probably the most hostile I've ever seen them before. And they asked me, well, what do you believe happens after you die? When I said, well, when you die, you're dead. Your brain is dead, and that's pretty much it. And everyone's faces on one side of the room just went blank. And I had mentioned earlier in my speech about George Carlin, and he sort of got me thinking with one of his famous religion bits. And, like, everyone knows how much I love George Carlin. And this one girl, she knows how much I like George Carlin, and she goes, so, since George Carlin is dead now, where is he? And I go, well, he's dead. Yeah, but where is he? I believe he was cremated, so I guess wherever they scattered his ashes. And she rolled her eyes because she tried to get, like, an emotional response out of me. And these people, they just couldn't understand, like, he's an atheist?
Was there anybody in the room who sort of got it, who might have been smiling or nodding? Or
actually, a few of my friends, they got it, and one of them had backed me. And it was kind of nice to have, well, maybe 3 people who responded to me in a positive way. And
John, I'm glad there's a gutsy college kid out there who's taking not just a stand, but a public stand. To be at the front of a speech class in front of a bunch of narcissistic, 20-somethings, and tell them essentially that the faith that their parents imparted to them is bogus, that's pretty ballsy. And I just want to say, you done good.
Thank you, man.
I appreciate you calling the broadcast, and you keep fighting the fight out there, okay?
Keep up the good work, too, man.
Thank you very much. Let's try area code 503. Hi, you're on the Thinking Atheist. Who's this?
Hi.
Tell me your name.
This is Kurt Mullen in Salem, Oregon.
Oregon. Kurt, what's going on?
Yeah.
What's your facepalm moment?
Oh, one of my biggest is with my dad, who's very much a theist. Anytime I try to explain evolution, we get into talking about cosmology and all sorts of other unrelated stuff. And I'm just trying to wrap my brain around how he makes that kind of a departure in thinking, going from basic biology to, well, obviously there's got to be something rather than nothing.
So that somehow verifies the entire story of God, 6 days, the garden, 2 naked people, and a talking snake.
Yeah, it's just totally ridiculous.
Thanks for the call, man. I appreciate it very much.
Great. Keep it up.
Thank you so much. Let's try 540. What's your name?
My name is Steven.
Steven, what do you got for us?
Okay, well, my facepalm moment, like, initially it didn't sound like a religious comment. It just came from a religious person, but the more I, talked to her, I found out it did kind of tie into religion. What happened is, me and my friend, she's on my Facebook, and we talk outside, but we always have our political, religious discussions on Facebook, and we leave them there because we fight all the time, and we know if we bring it up again in real life, then that's just not going to be good times,
Does it accomplish anything, these Facebook encounters that you guys have? I'm sure you're both thinking you're right. I mean, does anything come of it?
it hasn't come up yet. I like to think that, maybe somebody else saw it and they got thinking about it, but, that's kind of just wishful thinking.
So is there a specific thing, an argument they have that makes you just go, jeez?
Yeah, this was a one-time thing that we got talking about. We were talking about slavery and the politics during the Civil War. And the first thing she tried to convince me was that Lincoln freed the slaves solely for a political gain to win the war and not due to any human decency whatsoever. That wasn't, a facepalm by itself. It got even stupider. That one just made me laugh. But what she said in the comment box, and I honestly can't remember what led up to this, but she wrote, and I quote word for word, "Politics have never changed anything." And
wow.
I looked at the comment, and initially I didn't facepalm because just for like 5-10 minutes I looked at it and I'm thinking, what the hell did she mean by that? She's not that completely stupid. She must have had a typo. She must mean something else by it. What did she mean? And throughout talking, like the little comment wars, whatever people call them, what she meant to say, well, politics have never changed the morality of man. And I kind of, reminded her that it's not really politics' job to, regulate man's morality. It should be God's job, but he never, she never seems to intervene.
How did you get off on politics? First of all, politics has changed plenty, but usually not for the better,
Yeah.
In its purest form, yeah, sure, I get that. But how did you get from God to talking about politics and morality? I don't really associate the two. You see your senator in a bathroom stall giving signals to somebody else. You see those kind of headlines every day. Morality doesn't really come into the equation. You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's what I was trying to say. But just the initial when I clicked on the comment, it said politics have never changed anything. I was just dumbfounded. Like, I did not know what to think for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I was utterly confused and distraught. It was actually pretty stressful.
Hey, I appreciate the call very much. Thanks for being a part of the podcast, and, keep fighting the fight out there, okay, man?
Thank you. Thank you for taking my call.
Let's try area code 253. Hi, you're on the Thinking Atheist. What's your name?
Phil.
Phil, thanks for calling, man. I'm sorry I don't have a chaotic Shelley just as the glue that holds the show together, and without her, I'm just flailing about here in the deep end.
Oh, no problem.
Thanks,
no problem.
Thanks for waiting. What can I do for you?
My facepalm story has to do with a friend of mine that became a fundamentalist Christian, like a young Earth creationist. And so we're having conversations, sort of debates about evolution and where morality comes from and this sort of thing. And so I would, I would reference the parts in the Bible, like slavery, for example, and how it's condoned and this sort of thing in the Bible. And at some point he started to rationalize it, that the slaves were treated, weren't always treated badly, that if somebody needed a home and food, that this seemed like an honest trade, like a fair trade to him and stuff. And that was a real facepalm moment.
So he thought just because of the time it was a different culture that slavery was okay?
Even today, his argument was that it's why is it a bad thing? Why is it necessarily a bad thing?
Well, let's talk to the slaves. Let's get a little straw poll on the slaves and see exactly how they feel about it.
Well, and my point was that, look, man, even if they're in a harder place, like, why wouldn't you just give them a job? Why would you exploit their and who qualifies as a slave? Is there a particular ethnicity? Is it just the poor that should be slaves? I've seen that type of thing from fundamentalist, real literal interpretations where it's like, that they rationalize some crazy stuff, like, genocide and stuff like that. And that scares me because certainly there's a difference between moderates and fundamentalists. Let's be clear on that. But there's like a thin line, I think, there where, like, if something is the Word of God, then you're in real danger of, like, I don't know, moral regression.
Well, if you're going to take a knife and stab your child in the heart, well, that's murder. But if God commanded you to do it a la Abraham, well, then that's kind of different,
Yeah,
Have you noticed how many of the facepalm moments come when people are talking about dinosaurs and the fossil record? I actually saw these on my comment pages. There was one that said a person had argued to them, one purpose, that dinosaurs were fallen angels. And because we haven't found a complete fossil of a dinosaur, we can't prove they ever existed.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
There's another one on dinosaurs real fast. My neighbor thinks dinosaurs never existed. I asked him how come they found their skeletons, and he said they were elephants and rhinoceros bones. I'm like,
genius.
It makes you scared for the human race, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, it does. It's a Bronze Age morality kind of thing that scares the crap out of me, to be honest.
Well, I'm glad you're out there. Thanks, Phil, for calling the podcast this evening.
Thank you.
Let's try area code 360. Hi, you're on the Thinking Atheist Podcast. Who's this?
Hi, this is Dan.
Dan, what is your facepalm moment? Give me a story.
Well, I've listened to the other callers. My facepalm moment isn't exactly as grand as some of the others. Mine's more of a... Well, my entire family, I guess you could say, is religious, not so much as... Well, they're not hardcore into it. They believe in God, but not really the creation story and whatnot. They just believe in God, except for my sister. And she is the only one in my family that has a problem with me being an atheist. The rest of my family is, okay with it. Danny doesn't believe in God, fine. But I was home visiting my mom, and she was asking how my classes are going, so I go to college. And she goes, what do you take again? I was like, I take writing class and anthropology. And my sister's like, what's anthropology? I was like, that's the study of humans, primarily. She's like, you mean like evolution? I was like, yeah. That's not real. That's fake.
Really?
I was like, yeah. She told me, right in front of my face, it's not real, it's fake. I was like, yeah, which is why I'm taking a class on it. Gotta be fake, right?
Well, I mean, did she have anything to back it up, why it was fake, or is it just another conspiracy by science to disprove God? All those dinosaur bones are placed to disprove God. All of the cosmos is is being reported as such to disprove God. I mean, you have to admit, scientists can agree on a lot, but they agree on the basic building blocks of our Earth and our universe, don't you?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm completely 100% for science and stuff like that. I mean, even as a kid, and I went to church, but I stopped going to church when I was 5. I was even baptized. I was never really into the whole religious thing. Like, to me, as a 5-year-old, it never made sense. Like, I was like, big giant boat with a bunch of animals on it? Okay, something's wrong. Like, I don't get this. But I never, talked to anyone about it because I was, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. I'm not going to exactly question that. But, it's just my sister, though, she's really new into the whole evangelical creationism stuff. And so every time she sees me, she's got to bring something up. How does science prove this? And I'll honestly say to her, I don't know, because I'm not a scientist. I'm learning about it, but, I don't have all the answers for you. If you want them, I suggest you look it up, and not some creationist website, though, that tells you what it is.
I had
an actual scientific paper.
A guy on one of my in your own words videos who he said it perfectly. He said, when you tell someone you're an atheist, they treat you like they are entitled to an explanation from you. For some reason, I don't know. The fact I had the same thing happen last week. I'm standing there, and it's like they're vibrating. They can't go through the conversation without saying some dig about evolution or Darwin or some promotion of God or proof of God. I mean, it's like they're entitled to either convince me or have me say I'm wrong. And the truth is, I just would kind of like to hang out in the same room,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love my sister. There's no doubt about that. I mean, we've had our quarrels, but I try not to get to any argument with her because, when she asks me to present something to her, she doesn't have anything to back it up with. She goes, this is fake. And I'll be like, it's not because of this. And she goes, bye.
Bye.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, the holidays will be fun for you, won't they?
Yeah, she brings it up all the time, and she's like, Jesus was born on Christmas. How do you explain that? I was like, actually, not really, whatever. I'm like, it's actually a pagan holiday. You want me to go into it with you? And then she just kind of shut me out and then walked away.
Yeah, ask her if she got a freaking Christmas tree in her living room. Yeah, welcome to the pagan fertility symbol, I mean, most people have no clue. They still think Jesus was white. They think he's the guy, the effeminate white dude on all the oil paintings. It just boggles the mind. I got to move on. I appreciate the call very much, though, and good luck over the holidays with your family, okay?
You have a good one.
Thank you. I had a dialogue on my website someone had sent regarding their facepalm moment. They said they were talking to a religious person, and the religious person said, dinosaurs were killed by the flood. And the atheist said, well, that's wrong for so many reasons. I can't get it all done here. I can't explain it all here. And the religious person said, well, you tell me, how did the dinosaurs die out? And the atheist said, well, many scientists believe that a huge meteor took them all out. And the religious person replied, that's insane. How could one meteor have struck every dinosaur at the same time? You can't argue with it. Let's go to area code 513. You're on the Thinking Atheist. Hi, who's this?
Hello, this is Sky Comet the Fallen Angel. That's my internet name.
I love it. It's got style. It's got panache. You got a facepalm moment for me?
I have several, but I'll keep it to like 2.
Okay, bring it. What do you got?
I live in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is like, I call it the mini Bible Belt because you can't drive like 3 miles without passing like 5 churches. But this is facepalm moment number 1. This actually just happened the other day. I was sitting in a computer lab at my college, like the computer lab at college, and this guy was like, there was another atheist in the room. He was on a site, and he was blogging, and a couple of fundamentalist girls who were sitting right next happened to look over his shoulder, and I saw that look, if you know what I mean, on their face, like, oh my God. As soon as he walks out of the room, they have no idea I'm an atheist, and I'm sitting there listening to them going, yeah, they're like, oh my God, he's an atheist. Oh my God, I'm not talking to him anymore. He's got, like saying God exists is just wrong. That's just wrong. You should never say that. And they're going on, and they have no idea I'm sitting there, and I'm an atheist as well. And they're just bashing this guy behind his back, saying he's evil, and I think he rapes children like behind his back, and blah blah blah. And they're going on. And I was just sitting there doing a mental face palm, too much of a chicken to tell them I was an atheist. It would have been funny if I did, though, because I can't imagine. But they probably would have started talking about me as well. The next one was actually. It took place like a while ago this year. As I live in Cincinnati, probably just about everyone has heard of this. The burning down of Touchdown Jesus, Well, I live within like 15 minutes of like the Touchdown Jesus statue. And I remember the day it burned down, and when I was the news, of course, hijacked this story for 3 days, and it covered like 30 minutes, whereas like on the local news, what was really newsworthy and was going on, the oil spill was regulated to about 30 seconds of images and just, okay, we're just going to give it we're just going to give it like, play some lip service. We don't care about that. Let's get back to the burning down of Touchdown Jesus, which happened to be a 60-foot tall, really annoying statue made of styrofoam in front of this mega church. And the storm had been really bad a couple of days ago, and it got struck by lightning. And they were covering on the news all these Christians that were like that were like going through all their ideas of why it had happened. Of course, I'm thinking, when you make a 60-foot tall statue with a wire frame and flammable material, and lightning likes wire frames, really tall wire frames, it's going to get hit by lightning at some point, and that's exactly what happened. And it burned, and it's flammable, so it's going to burn to the ground. But the Christians were going, God is punishing us because it was a graven image. God is punishing us because we spent $200,000 on this statue and not on charity. We got people that were saying that it was just that it was proof of God's existence because God had brought Christianity to people's attention with this. No, actually it was the news that has a real preference for Christianity that brought this to our attention. You know, I had impulse the first day I saw it on the news to just roll around the ground laughing my head off. And I actually started laughing, and of course my family Christians started glaring at me. How dare you laugh at God, the fact that the irony that God smote a 60-foot statue of his son.
Can you hear me? Can you hear the sound of my voice now?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
You're back. I'm just like, I'm going to have to carry this. What happened?
Well, Blog Talk Radio switchboard.
Touchdown Jesus was definitely my facepalm.
Well, I can imagine. You know, I mean, it's like that poster that has the steeples with the lightning rod. And they're like, you know, if you really believe in that God's protecting his own house, why would he need a freaking lightning rod on the top of the steeple? I totally get it. And you've been a great sport while I've been scrambling to get my audio back. You have a wonderful, wonderful week, and thanks for calling the Thinking.
Well, you're welcome. You went back out again, but
my best. I can't hear the audio drop out because I'm not getting a live feed. It's a long freaking story that does not interest you. But those of you on chat, if my voice disappears, let me know, would you? Let's try. Let's see. I've got a 407 number. 407. Hi, you're on the Thinking Atheist. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Excellent. What's going on?
Hi. I go under the name The Zerg. I also translated some of your clips into Romanian. In Romanian, I'm living in Romania.
Romania?
Yes. And I also have a blog. Here, well, let's say 99% of the population are Christians. And atheists are about 1%. So imagine how that can be. Over that, there's a lot of entanglement between politics and the Orthodox Church, and we're trying to do our best to fight against this type of stuff. And I'm doing this with a blog of mine. And a few days ago, almost a week now, somebody comes on one of the posts about the Easter, where I've had some blasphemous pictures and some text just mocking the whole idea of nailing Jesus on a cross. And the first comment which this guy comes with says, "Oh, I almost left a comment on this pathetic blog." Well, he just did. First facepalm right there.
Have you seen the photo? It's speaking about, sacrilegious. It shows Jesus on the cross, and there's a caption underneath that said, "If you don't sin, Jesus died for nothing." Christians hate that poster. So is that your facepalm moment?
Well, that's one of them. This guy goes on a series of facepalm moments.
Well, I'm glad you're fighting the fight in Romania. You say it's almost exclusively Christian in Romania? I never knew that.
Yes. Well, that's kind of weird because actually most of them are not going to the church regularly, and
it sounds like America. Most Christians here don't bother either.
Yeah, and they declare themselves as Orthodox Christians just for conformity reasons. People, let's say my parents are not religious at all, but when I came to them and told them, well, I'm an atheist, they just freaked out and they said, "How can you say that? Then the Bible is true." And I said, "Oh, really?" And I gave them Jephthah's story, and I said, "Well, is this true? Does this story characterize properly God's character?" And they say, "Well, I don't know, but you just said the Bible is true." "Yeah, but I didn't ever read it." "So why are you saying it's true?"
Well, it's like that that line that says the Bible's like a software license. Most people just scan it a little bit, and they click "I agree" at the bottom and hit OK, and that's pretty much all they know. Take care of yourself in Romania. I got to move on. Thank you so much for being a part of the podcast, okay?
Bye.
Callers from all over the world. I had another comment on our Facebook page. It said, one time a Jehovah's Witness said that if the invisible pink unicorn existed, there'd be a book about him. Okay. You realize there's like a flying spaghetti monster Bible, don't you? I have a copy. I really do. Before I did the FSM video, I got a copy of it. I think it's the book of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. It's brilliantly written, by the way. If you're looking for a good laugh and just sort of a great parallel to some of the absurdities in real scripture, I'd encourage you to take a look. Area code 305, you're on the Thinking Atheist Podcast. Hi, who's this?
Hi, it's Jeremy from Miami. How are you?
Jeremy in Florida. What's going on?
Not much. How about you?
I'm waiting on your facepalm moment. What happened, man?
Well, you mentioned the pink unicorn. I was trying to explain the burden of proof at school, and, apparently they didn't understand it, because for the next 2 days, every time they saw me, they yelled at me, "There's an invisible pink unicorn behind you." So it was extremely annoying.
They totally missed the point, didn't they?
Yeah, and the only friend that got it asked me how I knew the unicorn was pink.
If it's invisible, how do you know it's pink? I've actually heard this argument from a Christian, and it made me facepalm. So they're making fun of you because they think you really do believe in it, but you're demonstrating a larger point, the unprovability of God, right?
Yep.
It's all good. And that's probably going to be probably going to happen for the rest of your natural life, my friend. But just know that you're taking the road of skepticism, reason, and science. And I'm a big fan of the invisible pink unicorn. So you just hang in there, man.
Yeah, all right.
All right, take care. Thanks for calling the Thinking Atheist Podcast. I've got, look at this, I've got a couple of 918s. This will be a 918-665 number, 918-665. Hi, who's this?
Hi, it's Chad in Tulsa.
What's going on, Chad?
I was glad to finally get an opportunity to participate in your shows. Normally I'm working Saturdays when the shows take place. So,
dude, it's weird doing the show after sundown. It's a bizarre feeling. Because normally it's a morning show. I got a whole different audience, but this has been a lot of fun. I'm glad you called. What's your facepalm moment?
Well, since living here in Tulsa, the epicenter of these superstitious lunatics, I've had several in the past 25 years that I've been here, but the most recent one being Halloween. I drive a delivery truck, and I get to see a lot of different areas, and saw a display that lady had a graveyard set up in her front yard, and she had a couple of hands sticking up out of the ground that was holding a sign. And I drove by, I looked at it, and it said, "Death defeated by Jesus." So not only have they claimed several other pagan holidays as their own, they're trying to get Halloween from us. So.
Well, what gets me is, when they do the Christian Halloween hell houses, they essentially take all of the fun stuff about a regular haunted house. I mean, they do everything. The chainsaws, people hanging from a noose, and ghosts and goblins and crazy. And at the very end, they pull out, like, a couple of real-life scary things, and then they always end with the crucified Jesus and have a whole litany of counselors waiting for you to exit so that they can lead you to Jesus. So they sort of grabbed the haunted house concept and decided they were going to use it to help propagate their message, and it makes me a little crazy. It makes me facepalm. I appreciate your call. Take care of yourself in Tulsa, okay?
Thank you.
Here's another great facepalm moment. Remember, it was the result of sin that man does not live as long as he used to, and we're smaller as well. Really? You mean back in the pre-Bronze Age, when the average lifespan was only 30 and people were much smaller in stature? That was all reverse. Their polarization was wrong. Let's talk to another 918 area code. It's 457. 918, hi, you're on with the Thinking Atheist Podcast. Who's this?
Hey, Seth, it's the Cranky Saint.
The Cranky Saint. You're a legend in these parts, my friend. It's great to have you back. What's going on, brother?
Well, I was originally going to call in with a facepalm from my own past. I had dug up some of my old Bible class notes from when I was a kid, and it made me facepalm. But then I had a facepalm moment happen just yesterday. And
what
it was
happened?
Better than it.
Don't leave me hanging. What happened?
Okay, I'm in the Army Reserves, and we had our training this weekend. And one of our guys is a real happy Christian. He makes Ned Flanders look like an atheist. I mean, it's amazing. I do hope you know who Ned Flanders is.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm picking up what you're throwing down.
Okay. I mean, you couldn't shake this man's faith at all.
All right.
Nothing. And I really hate to needle him because he's such a nice guy. But yesterday we were talking about morality. And I brought up several scenarios. I was setting him up hard. I brought several scenarios involving stealing a car. Things like, if I broke into the car and hot-wired, is that stealing? Yes. If somebody left their keys in the car and left it unlocked and I took it, was that stealing? Yes. And went through several scenarios. And then I broke out my copy of the Bible I have on my Kindle and told him to pull out his and pull up Luke 19. And this is a little story about Jesus sending two of his guys into a village to steal a horse. And we read through it together, verse by verse. I mean, he had told them, go into the town. Nobody's ever ridden his horse, but it's tied up. And take the horse and bring it to me. And if anybody asks you why you're taking the horse, tell them I need it. And sure enough, the guys go into town. They find the horse tied up. They untie the horse, and as they're bringing it out of town, the owner comes out and says, hey, where are you taking my horse? And he said, our Lord needs it. And Jesus rides off on the horse later with his followers' clothes piled on the horse for padding. I asked him, it's like, okay, so if I send somebody in and they find the keys to the car's unlocked, and they take it, is that theft? It's like, yeah, it's theft. Well, they just took a horse under the same circumstances. Is that theft? He said it was not theft because God owns everything.
God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, huh?
It was the most pain. It was like somebody hit me in the head with a ball-peen hammer. I just kind of, I literally rubbed the spot between my eyebrows, turned around, and wandered off. I guess he thought he won, but I just couldn't face him anymore for the rest of the day.
I heard a preacher do a whole sermon on it. It was called "The Earth Belongs to the Lord." And it's amazing how the rules change when God is involved. You know, apparently we're supposed to adhere to a certain code, but God, he can just go in and he can just screw with you. You know. I'm glad you called. You take care of yourself, okay?
All right.
Thank you so much. Look at the switchboard. I'm having a hard time keeping up with everybody. I'm going to try to get through as many of these as I can. As we talk about moments that give us just that facepalm where you just go, I can't believe it. Just wow. Did you really say that? Did you really just do that? I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were talking about how they were teaching their children that evolution is junk. I mean, just boom, evolution is junk. And I'm like, actually, no. Did you realize that not only is evolution now provable science, I mean, now that we've deconstructed the genome, and now that we've seen that we all have a common ancestor, now that we've seen that we share commonalities in our own DNA with, you know, plants and animal, you know, fruit, you know, all living things have a common ancestor. You understand that even now creationists are now embracing the concept of evolution as guided evolution, because now they can't even say evolution doesn't exist. Now it's being proven. Science is verifying it. So creationists scrambled to try to bring evolution into its fold, and she still said evolution is junk. I mean, it was like she was sending, she was not receiving. And it was a facepalm moment. Area code 511. You're on the Thinking Atheist Podcast. Hi, who's this? Hello? 511. Who's
Hello.
this?
Hi. Hello?
I'm here.
Hi.
Can you hear me? Hello?
I think so. Hello? Hi.
Well, this is really kind of fun. In an awkward way.
Hello? Hello? Hi. Hello?
Can you hear the sound of my voice? That's got to be a gag. 631, you're on the Thinking Atheist. Hi, who's this?
This is Robert.
Robert, you have a facepalm moment for me?
Yes, actually, I do. It happened a couple months ago when I was on vacation with like my relatives and stuff, and just recently in the past year, I found you guys, and you guys kind of helped me, you know, convert or whatever, like see what was wrong with religion and everything. But
wait a minute. Tell me, that's kind of a heavy thing to throw out. Were you a Christian on the fence or what?
Well, I was raised Catholic. Right now I'm in the middle of high school, and I was kind of always kind of like so-so with religion, like my mom like taught at the church and stuff, so I was like, yeah, all right, whatever, I'll go along with it. But I was always kind of like questioning, like, I don't know, this doesn't make sense, but I just kind of like brushed it off. But then like in the past couple of years or whatever, I've been seeing more stuff. Like I saw some of your videos, and like I saw one of George Carlin's rants and other stuff, and I started looking into it, and I was like, you know what, they've got points. This religion stuff doesn't make sense. So.
Wow. Well, I mean, it's a tremendous privilege to know that you were able to use some of the material. I mean, honestly, I'm just a smart ass with expensive toys, you know? And I'm one of those guys who came from religion, and I have a real fire about it, a real passion about it. And so I throw that stuff out, mostly because it's kind of cathartic for me. It feels good to be able to finally vent and let it out, and hopefully somebody else can relate. To know that you have been at a point when you were having some doubts, and the information helped you really is humbling and really a wonderful thing for me to hear. So thank you for sharing that. That makes my day. Now, what's your facepalm moment? What happened?
Right. Well, my facepalm moment was when we were in Pennsylvania with my relatives. Religion came up because, like, all their relatives were there, and we were having dinner, and we just started talking about it. And I had mentioned some video that I'd showed to them that was, like, joking about Proposition 8 or whatever it was in California, the gay rights one. And in the video, they mentioned Leviticus and how it says seafood is is forbidden. And one of my aunts was saying, "Oh, like that's not you can't take everything they say is true." And I'm like, well, I can pull up a Bible right now and show it to you. And then we went on with a discussion, and I ended up going on with my uncle, and I showed him like word for word the story of Sodom and Gomorrah getting the story of Sodom and Gomorrah being destroyed. And I was like, you say you're God's compassionate and everything, explain this. And he's like, well, he works in mysterious ways. I'm like, really? 'Cause it looks like he's working through fire right there. Cause,
oh, yeah, sure. God's army is blowing into Jericho, putting swords into the bodies of infant babes. Sure. Oh, yeah, infants, babies, you know, God wanted it done. But the Lord does work in mysterious ways. And the rest of us, facepalm.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling the podcast. I appreciate you sharing the story. You take care of yourself, okay?
Keep up the good work.
I will do my very best. Area code 336. Hi, you are on the... oh, by the way, 989. I'm going to get to you in just a second. I just skipped you by accident. 336. Who's this?
Hi, this is Sherry from North Carolina.
Sherry, I'm so glad to hear your voice. What's going on?
Well, I was just calling in. I was appreciating that you were doing this podcast tonight. My facepalm moment came, it was like same as an aha moment as well. I've only been new to the atheist realm of thinking for the last couple of months. And but a few months ago when I was still searching things, trying to find things out, I was driving to South Carolina with my father. And I was telling him about how my wife and I had went to D.C. and we were at the Holocaust Museum. And it disturbed me, you know, just seeing all of that. And my father, you have to understand, is a very sweet guy. He's very mild temper, and he's the best guy I know. But he said this, and it just threw me for a loop. He said, well, they're all going to hell. I'm like, Dad, how can you possibly believe that your God, this loving God, this great, just, wonderful God, would send all of those millions of Jews to hell? I just couldn't wrap my head around it.
So on top of the horror of the Holocaust, they are now condemned eternally. You know, I'd never even thought to think that, and I came from a Christian background. Wow, what did you say to him?
Well, I was just like, well, that's bullshit, Dad. There's no way. You know, it's like, how can you, I mean, he's a great guy. I'm like, how can this father that has raised me, you know, to be a free thinker, could possibly still stand by this idea that the terror that these people went through, they're going to hell afterwards. I just couldn't wrap my head around it, and that was just one of the first steps that threw me, you know, into further, you know, research and thinking and finding things out for my own. So I guess I owe him for making such a statement like that, but come on.
How long have you been a quote-unquote atheist? I mean, you came from a religious background. I mean, how long have you been sort of outside of that bubble?
Officially, like admitting it to myself, probably 2 or 3 months. But I've been questioning for a long time, and I left the concept of the Christian idea of God at least a year or two ago. But
how you doing? I mean, it has to have been a difficult road because many of us have been going down it along with you. I mean, how has it been?
It was really rough. Like I had periods of time where I said, well, no matter what is presented to me, I just cannot let go of the idea of Jesus being the Son of God and believing in him, because that's how I was raised. That's so ingrained into my thinking. And once I said that out loud, I realized how brainwashed I was. You know, that the fact that all the evidence in the world would tell me that Jesus wasn't this real supreme being, and yet I would deny it because I was afraid for my soul. And
some people, have asked me about why it took me so long to get out of it, and if you were raised in it, and tell me if this analogy fits for you. It kind of popped into my mind that it's sort of like coming out of a coma. You know when you watch movies and somebody wakes up out of a coma and boom, they're immediately up and lucid? Well, that didn't happen. In real life, people take often days, weeks to come out of a coma, and it takes them a while to get their bearings and to become lucid, and many don't even fully recover, but it was like that for me. I mean, it took so long to finally get my wits about me after being in the bubble of my faith for so long that I had to get past a whole bunch of stuff before I really was able to be a clear thinking person. Was that the case for you?
Absolutely. And it's like for me now, because I tried to test myself, because I'm still not where I feel like I need to be to face someone in an argument. But I love Netflix, right? So I watch all of these documentaries on religion on Netflix, and one of them that I was trying not to watch was The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. And I was afraid that if I watched this, that I would go back to thinking, that God was real. So I just put it off, and I'm like, no, this is putting you out of your comfort zone. You need to watch it. And then when I watched it, it was completely laughable. It's like there is no way that
I feel the same way about Kent Hobbins' stuff. Every time I see him, I just shake my head. And I got a guy who quotes him like the Bible left and right. Drives me absolutely nuts. I got to move on. I want you to know that there's a tremendous amount of people out here who are rooting for you, who agree with you, who have your back, and you ain't the only one going through it. So just be encouraged, okay? Some good things are going to happen for you.
Well, thank you so much, and I just want to say I love your videos. Absolutely love your videos.
You're very kind. So you're the one. You know what? I found myself sounding almost like an evangelist a second ago. I'm like, you're going to be fine. Good things are going to happen for you. Please, send your check or money order to the Thinking Atheist. No. You take care of yourself, okay? And thanks for calling the podcast.
All right, thank you so much.
What a great voice she has. Just makes you happy. Let's go to 989. Hi, you're on the Thinking Atheist Podcast. Thanks for waiting. Who's this?
Hi, this is Sherry from Michigan.
What's going on, Sherry from Michigan?
Oh, not much, man. It's finally cool to get a hold of you. I'm like the crazy Sherry that's on Facebook always trying to get a hold of you.
You sound a little, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm a little nervous. So what do you got for me, Sherry?
Cool. No, I'm just a cool, laid-back person. Anyway, like when I was 12 years old, I went to a Baptist church. We were asked to go by some friends. And they straight up told us that if we didn't sign their book of life, because the book of life in heaven, if you're in it, you'll go to heaven, blah, blah, blah. But if we didn't sign their book, that we were going to hell. And my best
friend and I
had
a book?
Yeah, they had a book, and people started going up to sign this. And we're looking at each other like, wait a minute, I'm not trying to sign anything. I'm just here for the games, I ain't trying to sign anything. And the preacher just kept going and going and going until we actually broke down and we had to call our parents to come get us.
That sounds kind of Jim Jones, doesn't it? I mean, that's just creepy.
It's very creepy. And, being 12 years old, we knew that was not right. It was just weird. It kind of skeeved us out. But then, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. This is all about you. What was the rest of the story?
Well, it was like when I got older, I had not met my grandmother from my dad's side. And when I did, she ended up having breast cancer, and she had to have one of her breasts removed. Well, she told me that she prayed to God that I would finally come to her and that she would be able to meet me. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. I'm here, you know? So, like a year after I left, she died. Like, the cancer came back into the same spot and spread throughout her body. So I was really mad about this. So I went to some Christians and I asked her, I was like, why? You know, if God is real and everything, like, why did this happen? Oh, because she's a sinner. Because she sinned, because God wanted her to die. She deserved to die. I said, what?
Wow.
Like, are you serious? And, like, she was a devout Christian. She prayed every day that she would get better. She prayed for everybody. She was just like the pillar of faith, you know? She just, and this Christian told me that she deserved to die because she was a sinner.
If you are around in about 10 minutes, I'm going to close the show with an email I got from a young lady named Allie, whose story mirrors that a little bit, and she goes a little bit deeper, and it will just give you the chills. And honestly, it just makes me so thankful to be a free thinker, to not be enslaved by that business, you know?
It's insane, like, how these Christians want to think and what they want to believe, and, like, nobody else can be right. Nobody. Even though we can sit here and tell you this, that, and the other thing, you're not right, I'm right, this is how it's going to be, and that's it. And it's really sad. And for them to tell me that about my grandma, and I just met her, I've known her for a year, I literally wanted to commit murder at that point.
It totally, like, taints your memory, you know, that all of the wonderful feelings and memories you have or are trying to have, it completely taints that. I totally get it. Well, you're not crazy at all, by the way. You're a great caller. I'm glad you took some time from your busy Michigan schedule to call and be a part of the podcast, okay? And you do it again, okay? Take care.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
You betcha. I got a Skype call. It's SYB. Is it Sebron? Hi, you're on the Thinking Atheist Podcast. Who's this?
Hi, Seth. My name is Sebron. I'm from the Netherlands.
The Netherlands, wonderful.
Yeah, I sent you a private message a while ago. I don't know if you remember. I bet you get tons.
I get a lot, but I'm sure I got it. What's up?
Yeah, I have a minor facepalm moment. I'm pretty fortunate to live here because there's not many hardcore religious people here. But I have a good friend whose dad happens to be one, and you know he knew I wasn't a believer. So it was one night I was just having beers with my friend. And his dad comes butting in. He's like, yo, we're going to church tomorrow. It was on a Saturday evening. And you should come along. It'll be good for you. It'll be good for your life. And all that kind of crap. And I said, nah, I don't believe that, you know. Then why not? You know, how did everything get here, you know? And, of course, he went to evolution and the flood and all that shit. I was like, yeah, we've got these fossils. And then you've got the KT boundary, you know, after which the dinosaurs fossils stop and the other species like mammals appear. And so like, yeah, that was just deposited in the Great Flood. But I replied, if it was all wiped out in one flood, you would find all those dinosaurs and all those mammals, you know, the rabbits and the T-Rexes in one sedimentary layer. And I said, that's just not the case. But he said, yeah, it's because the dinosaurs drowned first, and the smaller animals, they sought refuge in higher plains, in hills and all that kind of stuff. It's like, how do I even begin to explain how sedimentary layers work to a person who clearly doesn't understand it at all?
You almost got to give up. Did you know that America has a museum in Kentucky? A creation museum.
Creation museum. I know you have several, actually.
Where they have, I guess, a Garden of Eden display, and they have dinosaurs with saddles on them. And they're saying that the little children frolicked on the dinosaurs on saddles, and they're passing this off to an entire generation of Christian children as fact. It just makes my blood boil to think about it.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. We don't have that here, fortunately. I think only something like 52% of my country considers itself religious in one way or another, and the remaining 48% identifies itself as non-religious. So that's a lot of new agey and higher power stuff as well, but there's very little fundamentalism, but I happen to run into one of the more kooky ones with my friend's dad.
Well, I appreciate the call. And you've got a great connection. Whatever it is you're doing over there, keep doing it, because it sounds terrific on the podcast.
Yeah, I've got a good headset, and I'm using Skype, so...
Love it. Thanks for being a part of the show. All right, I'm going to move on. I've got let's do 5 or 6 more minutes of calls, and let's move as quickly as we can. Area code 210. Hi, you're on the Thinking Atheist Podcast. Who's this?
Hi, this is Lindsay.
Lindsay, you got a facepalm moment for me? What's going on?
Oh, definitely. When I was a freshman in college, or sophomore in college, I had to take a general education geology class. And I was always really interested in geology. It fascinated me. And a lot of people are like, oh, how can you be fascinated by rocks? But I thought it was interesting. And my professor on the first day of class passed out an example of what Texas wants to pass as their textbook. And it's teaching intelligent design and New Earth theory, also along with evolution. And he was pointing it out like, oh, this is so ridiculous. Like, how can, we shouldn't be teaching our kids this. And one of the girls in the class raised her hand and said, well, no, this is all true. And she proceeded to debate with our professor, who was a doctor of geology, about how New Earth theory and fossils were false and New Earth theory is true and everything. And it was just so infuriating. And it was just like, that was the one thing that pushed me away from being a Catholic and being an atheist.
Well, now, what was the teacher's disposition? Did he toy with her? Was he amused? Was he ticked off that she's wasting his time? I mean, what was his whole disposition?
Well, at first he was really, he was very, polite, and he tried to explain to her, very, just he's a really good teacher. He was trying to explain to her and just say, no, I can show you how this isn't true, and just, and he tried to be polite and tried to educate her, and then I think he just got frustrated and decided to move on. I think he felt like, okay, this is a waste of the class's time, and just, honestly, I would have been pissed off. So, I'm imagining he was probably mad and just was like, okay, I need to let this go before,
got frustrated
his whole profession
and decided to move on. Haven't we all felt that way at one time or another?
And he's in that awkward position of being an educator, and he can't. And she could go complain about him. He has to, keep some sort of professional decorum in the classroom.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's a facepalm moment. I'm glad you called. Appreciate you being a part of the show.
Thanks.
Couple more before we call it a night. 603. Hi, you're on the Thinking Atheist. Who's this?
It's Quinn from New Hampshire.
Quinn, you got a facepalm moment? What's going on?
I'm a sophomore in high school, and I was in band class, and I was talking with a couple of my friends, and somehow we got into religion, and he said that the USA was founded as a Christian nation, the founding fathers as Christians, and so I literally did the Star Trek facepalm, and he was wondering about that, so we got into this the debate, and eventually I asked him, so do you know what the last name of Jesus is? And he says, oh, that's Christ. So that's another facepalm I had.
Wow.
Yeah.
But Jesus is his first name and Christ is his last name? That's
yeah.
Actually, I think it's Jesus H. Christ, but only if you've hit your thumb with a hammer. Thanks for the facepalm moment. Have a great week.
Thanks.
I appreciate it. Let's do a Skype call. This is Romantic India. What a great name. Hi, you're on the Thinking Atheist. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Seth.
You're breaking up just a little bit, or it might just be in my headphones, so I'm going to try to hear you as best I can. What do you got for me?
Well, last month I got into an interesting Facebook discussion. I am sure you are familiar with some of those. A friend posted about having to study tolerance, and this guy immediately responded with a comment to the effect of, I'm glad that Jesus was not tolerant so that he could teach us about Christianity.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
wow.
Yeah. So I lost my temper a bit, I'll admit, and I said something like, oh, the Taliban is missing you, you should join. But they were still, a couple of other ladies joined in, and they were talking about how great Jesus is in Christianity. So I decided I would play around with them a little bit and ask them, why should anyone believe in the Bible? Well,
I appreciate your call very much. I'm having a difficult time. Apparently you sound great on the air, but there's some kind of a Skype glitch, so you're breaking up a little bit with me. But Did you get the whole story said before I cut you off and move on?
Well, I'll summarize it real quickly. One lady decided to prove the Bible by attacking evolution. And when I said that's not going to fly, she hysterically tried to proselytize to me and tell me to admit that I'm a sinner, accept Christ into my heart, and so on and so forth. So I just left it.
You just gave up. Sometimes you just have to shrug your shoulders and give up and move on and say, have a nice life, because arguments are not going to take you anywhere. But I'm glad you're on our side out there, and I appreciate you calling the podcast, okay?
All right. Thanks for having me.
It's a weird glitch. It sounds, I don't know how else to describe it. It's kind of an electronic sound. It's like a digital noise, and I can hear like every third word. And so I want to make sure I'm not cutting my callers off. Somebody thought I did it on purpose on a previous podcast and ripped me a new one. And I'm like, I'm not doing it on purpose, people. I had a couple more facepalm moments on our Facebook and YouTube page. One person told a religious person they were using circular logic. The religious person said, yeah, it's still logic. How do you argue with that? I was speaking to a friend about my atheism. She stated she believes evolution has been proven false because there hasn't been a single observance of a monkey turning into a man. Facepalm. There was another great one. Where was it? Oh, isn't it amazing that the earth is held up by nothing? They just picture like a little invisible Jesus hand holding the whole world up. It's a miracle. One more call before I finish with an email, and we'll call it a night. 408, hi, you're on the Thinking Atheist Podcast. Who's this?
Hey, aloha, Seth. This is John calling from Hawaii.
What's going on? You got a facepalm moment? Tell me your story.
Right on, bro. Yeah, so many to choose from, but I'm just going to pick one. In my own family, I have some kind of the extreme rapture, theologians, whatever, that believe in that. And I was having a discussion with my brother-in-law a few years back about, trying to conserve our environment, conserve oil, conserve resources, things like that. And just out of the blue, he threw out there, well, I don't believe we have to conserve anything because Jesus is going to come back in our lifetimes and the world's going to end and all our problems will be solved by, superhero Jesus coming out of the sky or something like that,
Well, they're just saying...
I just kind of had to laugh and shrug it off. I didn't want to get in an argument with family, but...
Well, they're just saying live fast, die hard, and leave a good-looking corpse because Jesus is coming back.
There's so many things you can facepalm on. I've heard a lot of good ones on your podcast today, but the whole end time theology is one of the scariest things to me here in the United States. I just can't believe that like 50% of the population actually believes that that's going to happen, and I just can't see how that can do any good for the longevity of our civilization, as a species on this planet, to believe in that stuff. I
heard a pastor a while back talking about how all the trouble in the Middle East was proof that these are the end times. And I'm like, when has the Middle East not been tearing itself to ribbons? It's been going on forever.
Yeah, exactly. And then one of your previous callers was talking about how her dad said something about the Jews being damned to hell. Well, that's actually... part of the dispensationalist theology about, since they don't accept Jesus as the Son of God in Judaism, that they cannot be saved to go to heaven until they accept Jesus. But then you get these people like Jerry Falwell and, he died, but what's the other guy, the Christians for United for Israel group, that are heavy into that whole end-time stuff. That just scares the hell out of me, man. I'd like to get, before I go, I'll let you go here real quick because I know you're wrapping up, but I'm wondering what your experience in the whole rapture theology is, if that was part of your upbringing since you were heavy into the mechanics of the theology.
Sure. I barely heard your question. I'm going to go ahead and drop the call or put it on mute. Not drop it. I'm going to put you on mute real quick so I can hear over you before we finish. But yeah, we were raised to hear about the rapture. And what we were taught is, And theologians couldn't even agree on the rapture. Some people said the rapture was going to happen here, and then we would go through a 7-year tribulation, and then Jesus would come back and reign on the earth for 1,000 years. Some people said that the tribulation would happen after the 1,000-year millennium. Some people said that we were going to a literal heaven, while other pastors and researchers said that heaven was going to be here on earth, that Christ was going to come down and heaven would be transformed. Some people say that heaven is eternal, but hell is not. I mean, they chewed each other to ribbons over the basic semantics of the rapture argument. Personally, I think that generation after generation has thought that they were living in the end times. They look at the sky, they look at the headlines, and they say, this is it, this is a sign, Jesus is coming back. And they've been saying it for about 2,000 years, and that ought to tell you something. For those of you still on the switchboard, I'm just about out of time here, and I want to say that I'm sorry I couldn't get to everybody. This does tell me that we may need to do another show on this subject, not because we're solving the world's problems. I know that the Facepalm podcast isn't designed to tackle hard questions. It's a cathartic moment where we can come together and just vent, and just talk. And I think we might have to do another one of these. But for those of you who called, who got through, who didn't get through, thank you so much for being a part of the show. Let me finish with an email that I got, and it just hit me, and I thought it might hit you, because this is an ultimate facepalm, okay? I'll read the email. It says, my name is Allie. I'm 27 years old. My entire family is extremely Southern Baptist, and when I came out atheist to them, I figured there would be some tension, but boy, oh boy, did I underestimate them. My aunt no longer speaks to me, and she tells my cousins that they're not allowed to speak to me either. She says that I am the Antichrist, all caps. Me. I'm a military wife. I've been for 10 years. I'm a nurse. I'm a good, decent person, but somehow I'm the Antichrist. Allie continues. Well, if that wasn't enough to make you facepalm, a few months ago, my aunt called me for the first time in 2 years. As soon as I answered the phone, she said, this isn't a social call. I just called to ask you to stop talking to Jeremy, my son. This is Allie's 18-year-old cousin. I asked her why. She proceeded to tell me that she just discovered that he was drinking wine coolers. I hadn't seen him in 5 years because I live on the other side of the country with my husband, but somehow my atheism was causing him to rebel. It was my fault that he tried one cigarette, decided to drink 2 wine coolers. Simply by not believing in God, I'd somehow introduced Satan into his heart. She then told me that if she caught her son doing anything else devil-related, she would fly her preacher out to where I live to perform an exorcism or something on me because I was ruining his life. Allie's letter continues. The saddest part is her phone call didn't surprise me at all. My husband and I have been trying to conceive a child. For the majority of time we've been married. Out of our 10 years together, there have been 8 years of tests, procedures, shots, and pills. I'm physically unable to conceive anymore. My aunt has informed me more than once that it is my fault. She says that God is punishing me for not believing. In the first year of my marriage, I was pregnant, but I was unable to carry him to full term, and at 6.5 months, I delivered my son early. He did not survive. Family members were called, and word spread fast. My aunt called my hospital room just a few short hours after my son took his last breath. Instead of saying how sorry she was, she simply said, maybe next time you get pregnant, you will believe. I think you've learned your lesson. You killed this baby by not accepting the truth. God works in mysterious ways, and I think you got what you deserved. If you want a facepalm story, just go talk to my family. They will give you an endless supply. Allie finishes by saying, I also want to say thank you, Seth. I was very secretive about my beliefs for a long time. You can imagine why, but finding your side showed me that I am not alone. It has been a huge comfort to me, and it feels amazing to finally have a place to talk about how I feel about religion without being called the Antichrist or the devil or Charles Manson's devil child. What you do is important, so please don't ever stop. Allie. Allie, you are absolutely not alone. And honestly, the site's not about me. I threw it up there a year and something ago, but the site has really become about the people like you who are out there fighting the fight, being the voice of reason, taking a stand, making hard decisions, having hard conversations, and facing just unbelievable facepalm moments every time you turn around and trying to get through it. Understand that we are in an amazing time when the veil is starting to really lift. I mean, think about the time that you and I happen to be alive. When technology is connecting the world and unlocking the human genome, and we're discovering things about our Earth and our bodies and our universe that they would have never fathomed. 100 years ago, who knew? Who had any clue? We're in this wild, amazing moment of enlightenment when we're starting to truly understand who we are, where we came from, what we are, why we are, what to do about it. And because we don't live this life for an afterlife, because this is our one shot, because this is it, we go around once and that's all. In my opinion, it makes life even more precious. And your life is precious, and the fact that you are taking a hard stand and that you are living truthfully could not be more important, because I think this may be the generation that changes the game for everybody behind us. You kind of get that feeling? That our children and our grandchildren may live in a different world because of the stand and the bravery and the courage and the confrontations and the arguments and the reasoning and the fights and the craziness that we may have to endure now. There may be an end zone for the generations behind us where they don't have to fight quite as hard. I think that's a fight worth making. Thank you to everybody for participating in the Thinking Atheist. Thank you for supporting the YouTube page and the website and waiting patiently for the videos to come around. They take a long time. The actual videos, as opposed to the podcast, take a long time for me to do personally. They're not cheap either, so that you don't see them as often as the podcast, and I know that frustrates some people. But honestly, the podcast has become really one of my favorite parts of the site, and it's because of letters like Allie's and calls like yours and conversations like these. And I just wouldn't trade them for the world. I would encourage you, if you are looking for some ammo in your arguments for reason, visit thethinkingatheist.com. Also join us on Facebook, Twitter, on the YouTube page, connect with each other, and be a part of our next radio podcast. Have a wonderful week.
Follow The Thinking Atheist on Facebook and Twitter. Watch dozens of original videos on the Thinking Atheist YouTube channel. And visit our website for resources, links, contact information, the editor's blog, and more. thethinkingatheist.com.